we thank you once again for your inquiry, Nathan. The idea in regards to which you would refer to the Japanese people in that sense definitely represent the idea of a different subrace to which you would know as the Asian genome. In that sense, the Asian genome does extend itself across many different stars throughout the idea of what you would know as the constellation of Seti, to what you would know as the star that you would know as Procyon, from what you would know as the constellation known as Lyra, from what you would know in that sense areas of the Pleiades. And so there are many different origin points as it relates to, shall we say, much of the Asian races. The Asian race in regards to its original roots did stem through the idea of what you would know as Lyra. That is where the idea of not just the Asian race, but all particular forms of human races were originally conceived within that particular area. The Asians were basically what you would know as the very first human genome that was placed upon your planet during the time of the Great Experiment. And that they are, shall we say, collectors of much of the ancient Lyran artifacts that have been placed upon your planet in regards to the instructional teaching, in regards to the learning and education that many of the Lyrans themselves had come here to teach humanity, specifically within the idea of the Asian minor populace. And so the continent that you knew now as Asia was once known as Asia Minor. And that this basically was, shall we say, the stomping grounds pertaining to many different forms of Asian sub-races. This is why you have different forms of sects and different forms of factions altogether pertaining to certain forms of Asian populaces. There are also many other different forms of ancient Asian sub-races that are now extinct, that in that sense once originated with more of the northern territories together with Asia. But many of them in that sense have derived from, again, the Lyran constellation, and functioned as many different sub-races. So the Japanese, in that sense, were an offshoot sub-race together, originally stemming together within the area of the Pleiades. But again, other Asian forms of life have been, shall we say, stemmed from the other particular stars that were aforementioned also. And that their particular form of culture has represented the idea very commonly of what you would know as the idea of loyalty, the idea of honor. And that they, in that sense, value the idea of work ethic, the idea of morality, and the idea of high values to benefit each other. And this has been, shall we say, much of the ancient wisdom, as they have been preservers of knowledge for thousands and thousands of years. And that their time even dates past the idea of what you would know as Atlantis, and that they have been, in that sense, guardians, keepers, pertaining to much forms of extraterrestrial technology that has been placed very commonly through the idea of your ancient kings, emperors, or what were often referred to as chieftains at the time. And so the whole idea here is that they are continuing to better themselves, continuing to, shall we say, understand that the culture that they reflect is very much about how the culture of your planet will eventually evolve. We would certainly see the Japanese as one of your most advanced cultures on your planet, perhaps even the most advanced, pertaining to any other culture on your planet. And so again, the Japanese themselves are the keepers of much of this ancient wisdom. We would also look more so in the idea that much of the particular connections to the native Indians in that sense would be very much as, shall we say, responsible keepers, but more so in the idea more of the keepers of illusion. The Japanese, the Asian races in that sense, were more so the keepers of artifact, the keepers of remembrance, the keepers of memory. And that is basically what they represent. Their DNA, in that sense, does hold particular forms of instructions, in that sense, much of the ancient ways, pertaining to, shall we say, advanced levels of technological aspects, advanced levels in regards to psyche, in regards to telepathy, in regards to, shall we say, other particular forms of archived keys that do represent connections to much of the ancient wisdom spread upon your planet. Again, much of their DNA does coincide with many of the other different races, but again, what makes them very unique is the idea of the keepers of memory. And that would be the closest approximation in regards to that. That again, there have been other different forms of Asian races, some that may be in that sense somewhat shorter in appearance, some that may be somewhat larger. But again, they do recommend the feeling that their energies have been, shall we say, widespread across your planet. Again, much to it of ancient civilizations of the Asian race that again are no longer with you at this time. So again, there have been many different sub-races pertaining to the Asian race. And so the Japanese simply represent one of these particular ancient keeper races that have in that sense developed their cultures honorably, loyalty through the idea of their people, and working together in harmony to assist in the idea of becoming the example of what human beings can become. Now, the whole idea primarily is that your planet is in no danger of the idea of, shall we say, destruction. That's not what's happening here at all. The whole idea is that you are working upon this planet to unify each other. And that will be an assignment that will continue to move on for decades, that may continue to move on for centuries. Your cultures aren't going anywhere other than the idea of ascending together as that way. And what we mean by ascending together is that you are assisting each other to grow, to learn, and to evolve. And that is primarily the idea of the ascension process. It has nothing to do with the idea of cataclysms or any types of catastrophe, period. So where you are going right now is the idea of, through years to come, the precursor to imminent unification throughout all races, through the mixture of all races as they procreate, as they interrelate together with each other, and moving into the idea of a united people, of a united humanity. That is where you are going upon your planet within the years, decades, and centuries to come. We thank you very much for the opportunity of this interaction today. I am Adronis of Sirius, sending love, appreciation, and gratitude to you, Nathan. Thank you again. Farewell for this timing, and we now return to the conduit. We will speak to you again, as now is forever, and all is one. Goodbye.